Hello. Back in the 1990s, the most popular television program in the world for a while was Baywatch, a drama based on the efforts of a group of LA County lifeguards led by Lieutenant Mitch Buchanan, the role played by David Hasselhoff. In 2016, this show lasted for about 9 good years. It first appeared on NBC for 1 year for the 1989-1990 season and then was subsequently canceled. Then the producers were able to get a syndication deal, and at that time syndication was becoming really big because Star Trek The Next Generation had been syndicated in 1987, and it was a really big show, so syndication had become a viable market. And the producers of Baywatch were able to get a syndication deal to syndicate the program in foreign countries, and to independent television stations or TV stations would air it. They would purchase the program to air in their own time here in the United States. So it was a syndicated program that was bought by television stations all over the United States and in many parts of the world. And Baywatch was the most popular show in the world for a while. And it really was amazing because it was a beachfront show, but it was amazing the kind of dramas, the kind of plots, the kind of stories that you could come up with based on just a beachfront show. There were stories about environmental protection, battling bad, crooked companies, battling eco-terrorists, investigating murders, criminal activity, adventures at sea, adventures involving the Coast Guard, just a wide range of dramatic programs based on various adventures that involved the LA County lifeguards. And it was a hugely popular show for a long time until finally the Baywatch Hawaii couple of seasons came along in 2000 and 2001, and then everything kind of went to hell in a handbasket after that. But Baywatch was one of my favorite TV shows for a long time, and now in 2016 a movie version is about to come to the big screen, and from everything I'm hearing, this movie version of Baywatch is setting up to be a big box office disaster. Why? Because Baywatch was originally a drama series with certain comedic elements from time to time, but it was basically a drama, and this big picture, big screen version of Baywatch, the movie apparently is going to be a comedy. So if they're going to produce a parody of Baywatch, I don't think it's going to go over very well with people who like the show like I did, and may be headed for a huge box office failure, box office disaster. Another thing, they have cast as Lieutenant Mitch Buchanan, the lead character, they've cast Dwayne Johnson. Well, in the original made-for-TV movie Panic at Malibu Pier, and subsequently the Baywatch TV series, Lieutenant Mitch Buchanan was a white guy. And I'm not real big on this business of changing genders and changing races and changing ethnicities of original characters when you make a movie or when you do a remake. So, I was a big fan of Baywatch for a long time. I thought it was a great adventure series, and I'm afraid this movie is just going to be a big flop. I would like for Baywatch to come back as a TV series, because a beachfront show like that is just plain fun in a lot of ways. It's a different setting, and yet there are an unbelievable number of plots that you can develop from that beachfront setting where people go to work on the beach every day, and it was often called the best office in the world. Now, if Baywatch were to come back as a TV series, I think because so much time has passed, obviously it would have to be recast, because the series, for all practical purposes, ended in 2000. As I said, the 2-year extension Baywatch Hawaii was basically a disaster, and when you see Baywatch on TV, which isn't very often, it has been on Pop TV this past summer, but when you see it on TV, you never see the NBC season, hardly ever, and nobody's really interested in airing the Baywatch Hawaii, which was the 2 years at the very end. So if Baywatch were to come back, what could they do to make it better than the original? Well, I've got some ideas here. There seemed to be a lot of concern over the fact that the leadership team of the Baywatch lifeguards was male dominated, because the original lead officers that you had were Captain Don Thorpe, played by Monty Markham, and he was a great captain, great actor. There was Lieutenant Mitch Buchanan, who was the main supervising lieutenant at the Baywatch headquarters, and then you had Lieutenant Ben Edwards, and somewhere along the line somebody got concerned about the fact that it was a male-dominated organization and decided to remedy that. And so they spent the next several years trying to balance the lead character, Mitch Buchanan, with a female colleague and try to keep a balance of power. And the thing that concerned me with that is, do organizations actually operate that way? I don't think I've ever seen one that actively tried to maintain a balance, a gender balance in the power structure. And yet that was what the producers of Baywatch chose to do. First they brought in Lieutenant Stephanie Holden, and she was a lieutenant just like Mitch Buchanan, and there was this tension for several years about, is he running the show or is she running the show, or are they both running the show? And it was kind of left murky, and from time to time you got indications it was her, from time to time you got indications it was more him, but there was this constant tension in the organization. And I don't think real organizations work that way. I think it's a little bit more clear as to who is in charge. And so apparently there was an effort to sort of be politically correct and make sure there was a gender balance. When they decided to kill Stephanie Holden off, they brought in Nancy Valen as Captain Samantha Thomas, and then there was also this Lieutenant Taylor Walsh for one season, and they didn't last. They both burned out after a year. And then after that, they brought in Mitzi Capture at first as an administrative consultant, and then as a lieutenant alongside Lieutenant Mitch Buchanan, and she was actually pretty good. I would say that Alex Riker, played by Mitzi Capture, was actually pretty good. I thought the other attempts at balance just didn't work that well, and Alex was pretty good. But by this time, the series was kind of on the way out, and moving on into its last legs. They were running out of ideas for different adventures and things like that. So I think if Baywatch comes back, they don't need to be so concerned about maintaining a gender balance in the power structure, because I don't think real organizations do that. Now, one thing that you did see from some of these, sorry to say it, but some of these female officers that were on Baywatch had this tendency to target certain lifeguards and treat them in very unfair ways. And you do see that in real organizations, but it was frustrating to see it on the TV screen. So if Baywatch were to come back as a TV series, I don't think they should be so politically correct as far as trying to maintain a gender balance. I think that was a negative. Now, another issue that was a little bit frustrating to some people in the audience was that of Mitch's love life, because he was a divorced man, a divorced single parent. First he was, I think, non-custodial, and then I think later he became a custodial parent to his son, Hobie. And there were various attempts to hook Mitch up with different women through the year, but the trouble was the producers never got it right. There were about 3 who would have been good matches for Mitch. One of them was Kay, the publisher of the Venice Voice, played by Pamela Bach, and she was actually David Hasselhoff's real-life wife. They were actually married, and she would have been a good wife for Mitch and the Baywatch TV series, but that didn't work out. And then another good choice would have been possibly Jackie Quinn, who was this, first of all, she was this performer, this lounge singer, but later became a business operator. She bought the Beach Hut, and she was a very interesting person, played by Susan Anton, and I think she would have been a good match for Mitch Buchanan, but that didn't work out. And then finally, and this is totally inexplicable, there was Jenny Wade, the horse lady, the lady who worked with the horses, and they got into a situation where they had to rescue this horse that was in danger of being put down, that she was working with, and I think she would have been a good match, but Jenny Wade lasted only for 1 episode, and so they never did find a really good match, and I thought that was one of the failings of the show. Now, another thing was this immaturity of some of the lifeguards, because here they are in this very responsible, highly responsible position, responsible for saving lives, conducting rescues, and maintaining the safety of the beach and saving lives, and yet some of them behaved in horribly immature ways. There was this triangle between lifeguard Matt Brody and lifeguard Summer Quinn and surfer Jimmy Slade, and apparently they were all 3 friends, but these 2 guys were attempting to force Summer Quinn to make a decision between them, and there was this whole storyline about all the pressure that they were putting on Summer, and apparently all this pressure to choose between these two was affecting her life and affecting her job, and that just didn't seem very professional. And there was a lot of immaturity with regard to relationships. C.J. Parker, played by Pamela Anderson, she was a very good lifeguard, but she was a bit of an airhead as well. And you like to think that people who are engaged in rescue operations and in saving lives and in keeping the public safe, you'd like to think of those people as mature, and some of these people were extremely immature. So if Baywatch were to ever come back as a TV series, I'd like to see people who are more mature. So 3 things is sort of get rid of the political correctness as far as trying to maintain a perfect gender balance in the power structure, because I don't think organizations actually operate that way, and I think the ones that do end up with problems because instead of choosing the right people, they're trying to maintain this sort of artificial balance. And another one, that TV producers have this bad habit of matching the wrong people in romantic relationships or in marriages. So if they recast Baywatch and they have another lieutenant who's going to be the central character, then I hope they find, and it's a single person, I hope they find more appropriate matches for this person. And then again, I'd like to see a lot more maturity with the lifeguards. Now there was this case where Michael Newman, he was the bald lifeguard, and he was also a real-life Los Angeles County firefighter and a real-life Baywatch lifeguard. And he was an older guy, and he did get into a bit of trouble one time because he wanted to work an assignment on the beach where a group of models was doing a photo shoot or something like that, and the captain at the time, Samantha Thomas, played by Nancy Valen, threw a fit over that. I thought that was immature on the captain's part, because Newman was a veteran. He'd been on the job a long time and had been very dependable and an extremely good lifeguard, and then she pitches a fit just because he wants to go take a look at some models on the beach and wants to work that tower. Well, all she really had to do was say, no, you're working this other tower, but instead she had to throw a fit over the fact that he wanted to go take in the scenery, so to speak. And I don't think there's anything particularly unusual or anything particularly wrong about that. Newman was always dependable. He never got into these ridiculous love triangles like the Brody, Slade, Summer Quinn deal. And speaking of immaturity, Summer Quinn was also a bit of an airhead. And I don't like to see airheads as lifeguards or rescuers or anything like that. So here are just a few ideas if somebody were to get the idea to recast Baywatch and bring it back to television. The 9 good years that it had, that's a long time in television, but I think like American Idol, a new Baywatch series could come along, and obviously it would have to be recast, but it could be done much better than the older series, and those are some of my ideas for doing that. So I'm hoping one of these days we'll see a new Baywatch on TV, a brand new TV series, because this beachside drama show, I found that to be really fun, really interesting. So maybe we'll see a new Baywatch one of these days. I kind of hope so, but I hope they do pay attention to some of these things I've said. They probably won't, but I wish somebody would. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.